first off, before we start this, I skipped past him walking through, but I just want to say, and this doesn't just have to deal. This doesn't just deal with this song in particular, but it deals with the whole concept of patriotism and whatnot in general. But we, as the rational people of this country, need to figure out a way to reclaim all of the patriotic symbols and messages and everything, and just the word patriotism from the Christo-fascist nationalists. I don't know how you do it because they've had such a stranglehold on it and this is even beyond Trump. This is since 9/11, where the right has cemented themselves in the minds of just about every American that they are the ones that are allowed to wave the flag and play. The reason why I bring this up is he had "Proud to be an American" playing in the background, which, as a former neocon, it's still, I still get hit by it, but now it kind of rubs me the wrong way at the same time. I think a lot of it is because whereas neocons, and I would argue even more so Trumpers, it's not, true patriots are able to see when there are problems within their country. They can be proud to be whatever country they're from, but they can also acknowledge that the country isn't perfect. That's the difference. That's the difference between patriotism and nationalism. Patriots, yeah, they're proud of their country and proud of what the country has done, but they also understand that, especially here in the U.S., I'm primarily talking about here in the U.S., they're proud of the country and what it has done, but it also understands that this country has not lived up to its ideals yet. It has not completely fulfilled its promise to the world. We're getting there. But unfortunately, Trump and his acolytes have pushed it back a few decades. So we have to reclaim what we had and then continue the inexorable march of progress. But like I said, we need to figure out a way to reclaim those symbols and say, no, this isn't exclusively for the bigots. But let's get into this.
Very special. Happy New Year. We're going to have a great year. We got to win. We got to win. 90% of the people of this state are going to cast the most important vote of their entire life. I believe that. I believe that's the most important. I used to say it in 2016, and I'd say it proudly. And I
do it, but this time it's actually the truth. Both sides say it, but this time it's actually the truth. For on the left, at least, both sides will say that, this is the most important election of our lifetime, etc., etc., etc. which this time on the left it is. On the right, not so much. If Biden wins again, we just, keep on going the way it's been. So Trump is definitely wrong there, for at least on his end.
I meant it, but this is the most important because our country is going to hell. Like, nobody can believe what's happening to our country. When you read the news, even if it's fake news, a little bit of it, but they really can't hide what's going on, including with the president. His performances are just terrible. So sad to see. He represents our country so badly. Such trouble because of him. By delivering a massive victory in Iowa, you'll send a thundering message to Joe Biden, the fake news media, and all the evil and sinister people trying to destroy our nation. Can only be the reason. With your vote, Monday, January, you take back the country. And we're going to probably have to put this phrase, make America great. And it'll start right here in Iowa. Martin Luther King Day. It's going to be a day, and I'm coming to Iowa to be people. I'm going to be in office, okay? We have to do,
This one I'm
just go by the polls. The polls will say nobody's seen this, but we have to the worst president this country's ever had. He's so happy around today is Jimmy Carter. Because his administration, by comparison, brilliant. I would say his administration was brilliant compared to Biden. So don't stay home if you want to say, every one of you go out and vote. You got to get out and vote. If you're a first-time caucus goer, you don't have to caucus, and I'm going to have to do, by the way. I've done this before. I'm a quick and so I think everybody in this room, at least 94% of you are the other week, except us also, right? And you can learn how to caucus in your caucus location, which is often different than where you normally ia.donaldjtrump.com. So,
of course, you see them too is the web.
It's actually fun to meet great people. To be honest, it's who knows? If you're not married, maybe you'll meet somebody, the love of your life. You'll say he was the greatest.
God, that would be
That's some beautiful guy or woman, and we appreciate it. We joined by some really fantastic people right from the beginning. Senator Charlie Menton. Charlie, thank you very much. And you know the story with Brad. I've told it so many times. I say it again. He was the first one in the nation to endorse me. He endorsed me before I knew I was running. He endorsed me 3 months running. And I kept saying, who's that guy, that senator from Iowa? Who is he? And he said, it was Brad. And he really liked me a lot. And he was a little earlier than me, but that's okay. And he was actually first in the country. Where is Brad? He's around here someplace. I just thank you, Brad. We love Brad. Remember that name. Call him the Mulder. Call him. Really? Very proud. Heather, very much. Again, it's been a real person. Tragic event. That special that okay, but not great. The stakes of this election
Great, but not
illegal alien or invaded from all over the world, or military invasion.
forget if I brought this up. DeSantis, the but I think I figured out, and ironically, well, it's a combination of a couple of reasons for why this is, but the primary reason is cruelty. But there is a very simple and I mean the stated reason nowadays amongst Trumpers, because and this is one thing I will give them credit for, they don't do it in the way it needs to be done. They do it in a cruel way instead of trying to help people. They're just hurting foreigners and claiming it's American first. But the best way to fix the immigration problem is not putting up a border wall, not sending them home and all of that. It's not focusing. Well, it's focusing not on like what's funny is that, and I think part of this would also, even though they hate immigrants, they love the fact that so many people are wanting to come to the U.S. because then they'll claim, oh, it's because the country is the greatest in the world, which it's not, by the way. But the reason for why so many maggots, well, damn, I lost my train of thought. But the reason why so many maggots don't want to, are focused entirely on the border, but the reason why they focus on the U.S. so much is because they're ethnocentric. But there's a very simple solution to the immigration problem, but unfortunately, the maggot wouldn't like this plan because, well, their stated reason now is because they're so America first now that they don't want, for some reason now, they don't want any aid being sent anywhere else, whether it's Ukraine. I'm not sure what their stance is on Israel at this point, but certainly Ukraine, they're against sending any aid. But and they're so focused on which this part I do agree with, bringing work back over to the U.S. and all of that. But I'm specifically talking about foreign aid. They're so against foreign aid to any countries now, and it's their stated reason is because they want to be America first, and they want to keep money here in the U.S. But this is what I was gonna say. They want to keep the money here in the U.S., but they're not actually using that money in the U.S. for good things. They're wanting to use it for cruel things, like shutting down the border and I don't even know. Like, they want to keep all this money in the U.S., but then they never actually say what they want to use that money for. I guess to bring down the deficit. Bring down the deficit, and you get, either to break even or a surplus or whatnot, then, shouldn't you be using that money to actually help the people in this country? But I digress. The way that you fix the immigration problem, it's not by focusing on the wall. It's not focusing on the people coming to this country. And the other reason why they wouldn't want to do this is because it would hurt the reputation and prestige of, they hate immigrants, yet they love espousing why said immigrants are coming to this country, because they want to come to the greatest country in the world, which it isn't. But the way you fix the immigration problem, it's actually quite simple, and we've done it before. Now, I don't really necessarily know if it would be I'm not sure if it would be as expensive or a little more because there's more countries involved, or a little less because you're not dealing with as large, yes, you're dealing with as large of an area overall, but you're not dealing with as much of an issue, as much of a problem. You're not having to do quite as much of a rebuild in this scenario as you did in the past. There are two former doctrines / strategies that I would bring back, and this, as long as it's done correctly, as long as everyone's on board and you get it done properly and in the right way, not in the way that we've been doing it in the past, which has just caused the problem. But if you do it correctly, then it would work. The first is the Monroe Doctrine. And for those who are not, this is one of your many history lessons of the afternoon. The Monroe Doctrine by James Monroe this was back when these countries were all colonies of European countries. But the Monroe Doctrine was focus on making sure that we have influence and we are the ones that the Central and South American countries aspire to be. And focus on limiting colonial expansion into Mexico and Central and South America. I would expand, or not really expand upon it, but I would change it to where now it is, we want to be the super state of the Americas, but in order to fix the immigration problem, so that these people, and this leads me to the second doctrine / strategy that I would compare this to. In order to stop the immigration problem, instead of doing it the cruel way and just forcing them to stay in their countries that are falling apart, why not, I'll say the second part. Why not create a Marshall Plan type strategy? And for those of you who are unaware, Marshall Plan was the plan made by the U.S. to give a lot of aid and basically rebuild Germany from the ground up after World War II. Essentially create a Marshall Plan for any country that needs it in Central and South America. Now, this will vary based on country. This would vary on country. And rebuild the country, but not in the way that we've been doing it for the past almost century, which is, we have been very interventionist in Central and South America over the decades. But it's been mostly to go against communism. And unfortunately, a lot of times it's made things worse because it turns into a far right dictatorship, and that just hurts the country as a whole even further. Atrocities are committed, all of that. So, as a result, then people have to flee. No. This strategy is creating democratic governments and bringing in the resources necessary to make these countries prosperous, so that and not just for the wealthy, not just for the top 1%, but prosperous for everyone. Now, we have our own problems here in the U.S. with this, so how well the U.S. would do in other countries on this level, this may not be the best strategy, but, let's just say it can work. Let's just say we try it. And if it can work, then you fix the immigration problem, because more people don't need to leave the country in order to try to get a better life. They can stay in their country and still be prosperous. That's how that is the best, most simple way. And it's not simple, don't get me wrong, but I think it's 1,000 times better plan than shutting off the border and basically saying to every asylum seeker, every poor person, every desperate person in Central and South America, you can go fuck yourself, for lack of a better word. So that's how you fix that problem. So let's get back in.
Invading crippling.
Again, I mentioned this. I mentioned this when it came to DeSantis. Yes, the middle class is deteriorating, but not because, again, when times are good, Republicans will always say it's because of capitalism. But then when times are bad, they'll never also blame capitalism for those problems. They'll blame the government. It's not the government that's causing these problems. It's greed. It's greed and lack of regulations.
we got to be. It's a great honor. Usually, what happens is they sit down and they stand up again, and it's okay. I consider it an honor. I appreciate it. Violent criminals are running wild in our Democrat-run cities, while law enforcement has been weaponized against Christians and conservative people.
Again, like I mentioned before, they're not. Just because you aren't the dominant group and you can impose your will on everyone else does not mean that they're trying, equality to the hegemonic group is deemed as discrimination. And that's just not right.
Before like this before, this guy goes around and says, "I'm a threat to democracy." No, he's a threat because he's incompetent. He's a threat to democracy. You grossly
projection. That's all the Republicans can do is projection.
He got us into wars. We're in wars now. You look at the police.
I still don't understand this talking point. How did Biden? I mean, the argument Trumpers will make is that Biden is weak, and that's why Russia and Hamas did what they did. I don't think so, because here's the thing. Especially with how Trump talks, and certainly how his supporters try to say he is, Trump is not a neocon. He's not a war hawk. So he's going, even if he was in office right now, or, in 2021, 2022, 2020, you get the point. If he was in office currently, maybe, but if anything, his friendship with Putin would have made it to where Putin probably would have gone to him and been like, it's okay if we take Ukraine, right? And Trump probably would have been like, oh yeah, sure, go ahead. And they would have been even more screwed than they already are. As for Hamas, I think it was just they reached a breaking point. Neither war is as a result of American policies or who's in the White House.
Would have never happened. These things would have happened. Inflation would have happened. All these never happened. Millions of people would be alive right now. Millions of people.
It's very easy.
You look at Ukraine with those gorgeous towers, 8 towers old. They're all dead.
It's very easy for someone who wasn't in office at a time to claim that they would have done things differently, or that it would have resulted in a different outcome. Would it have? I doubt it.
Could have a big rebuild. Millions. I think the numbers are much bigger than what you're hearing. They knocked down an apartment house. These are big buildings, too. It's shocking how big they are. And they say 2 people were injured. No, people were killed. A lot of people were killed. The numbers are much bigger than you hear. It just never happened. Most of the stuff, almost all of it. I can't think of anything that would have happened. We would have stopped all of it. And we did. We had no inflation. Maybe inflation.
See, again. Now, it would be funny if he had won in 2020, what he'd be saying right now. Now, again, like I said, I don't know if the I don't know if the wars would have happened or not. I think they would have. But inflation certainly would have happened because 2/3 of the checks sent out and 2/3 of the COVID spending that created the inflation were done under Trump. And either way, either way, I think the third one would have been done as well. So inflation would have happened regardless. He probably would have come up with some BS excuse blaming the Democrats for the inflation, even if he was in office. But it is intriguing to wonder what he would have said.
That's so bad, probably the worst we've ever had. Taiwan, that'll be next. Iran is inches away from a nuclear bomb. When I was with Iran, they were broke. I wouldn't let anybody buy oil. I said, look, I want to be good to them. I want to be nice. They can't have a nuclear weapon. They're, I guess, 31 days away from having a nuclear weapon. It becomes a much different negotiation, a much tougher negotiation. And it's so sad. This would have never happened within 1 week after the election. But that's the way it goes. We did great in that election. We got millions and millions more votes in that election than we did in 2016. Millions. We did much better than we did in 2016. I was told by the great John McLaughlin. I said, is John McLaughlin here? John McLaughlin, the great pollster, who's fantastic, and other pollsters said that there's no way if you get 63 million votes, the same as we got in 2016, there's no way you could by millions with the most votes of any sitting president in history. And they say you lost by a whisker, just by a little bit. These people. But you know what? This will be...
Yes, because the reason for why... Okay, he's too stupid to understand this. But there is a very simple reason for why there were so many voters... There was such a higher voter turnout in 2020 as compared to 2016. And it's as a result of a number of different factors. There are, I would say there are three factors for why there was such a higher voter turnout than in 2016. First was, I'm trying to figure out if I should go from most important to least important. What kind of stupid question is this? Do you prefer Hamas, ISIS, or Al-Qaeda? None of the above. None of the above. Simple as that. None of the above. But, okay. So there are three reasons for why 2020 went different than 2016. First was the fact that let me see if I can figure out which way I want to go with this. I'll go from the smallest reason to the biggest reason. First was because a lot of Gen Z came of age in 2020. They were finally able to vote, and as we've seen time and time again, Gen Z, especially as a result of essentially growing up with Trump and with this current political climate, Gen Z is much more politically active than even, now millennials are very much politically active as a result of Trump as well. But they are much more politically active than millennials were when they came of age to vote in the early 2010s. late aughts, early 2010s, and certainly in the Gen X's in the 90s. And there's a very simple reason for why that is. It's because we're in a much more divisive and much more crucial moment in American political history. So the stakes are higher, and Gen Z recognizes that and understands that they need to be politically active in order to save their future. Back in the early tens, late aughts, from basically from the 90s through to 2014. The country was good. The country was good, and politics weren't nearly as divisive, and so you didn't have as much existential threat, not just to yourself but to others, and also here's another thing too. As we progress as a society, as a species, each generation becomes more and more empathetic. So, Gen X, boomers definitely all about themselves. Gen X, it was very much, they had their cultures and whatnot, but it was about themselves and about their small cliques, their small subgroups. Millennials expanded a little further. They started getting into more broader categories, and now Gen Z is very much, we want to fix the world and make the world better for humanity as a whole, and that's why that's the first reason why there were more votes in 2020 than there were in 2016. Gen Z is a very big generation, and a lot of them came of age between 2016 and 2020, so they were able to vote. Second reason, there were a lot of people who, when given the choice between Donald Trump and Hillary Clinton, they did not care. I was one of them. I didn't care for either of them. I was like, I'm not going to vote for the lesser of two evils. So they stayed home. They stayed home and didn't vote. Whereas in 2020, after seeing what happened with Trump, and because Biden isn't as grating of a candidate as Clinton is, then more of the leftists and more of the progressives and more of the progressives said, okay, Biden isn't my ideal candidate, but I guess I'll vote for him. I'd rather have him for 4 years. He's not my top choice, but I'll take him over Trump, obviously. So that's the second reason. Third reason is because of the way the system is. And this is why Republicans are so against things like mail-in ballots and whatnot. If you make it easier for people to vote, then more often than not, the vast majority of people who will say, or who either will say, I'm not going to make the trek to the ballot, or I don't feel like it, or I can't, or what have you. The vast majority of people who will only vote if you make it easier are going to vote on the left. That's just common knowledge at this point. And that's why the conspiracists and the Trumpers don't seem to understand how Trump was in the lead originally and then fell behind the next day, it's not because of some massive conspiracy. It's simply because when the votes from the voting booths, from the electronic voting booths, are automatically put in the night of the election, yeah, not the vast majority of, but more Republicans vote in person than they do mail-in or absentee. So yes, you're gonna have a skew to the right. But then once the absentee ballots come in, then it creates that change. It creates that shift. So that is a very simple, very straightforward, very logical reason for why there were so many voters in 2020 as compared to 2016. But unfortunately, Trump and his acolytes are too stupid to understand that.
Be the history of our country. We have to win this, but this will be much bigger than if we did it the more traditional way. And I think we're going to do it. I've never seen spirit like this. We didn't have this spirit in 2020 or 2016. We had a lot of spirit. We had more spirit than anyone's ever seen. But it's not like this now.
This is the reason, and I'm hoping that I'm wrong. Because Trump, we don't want Trump to win, obviously. But this is something that I'm curious about. Because on one hand, yes, the myth and the conspiracy theory about them stealing the election have galvanized the cult. But at the same time, I feel like it can also galvanize us to understand that it wasn't stolen, and that and the threat to democracy that Trump poses. So it's going to be very interesting what the turnout is going to be like in 2024. I it being, especially because now 4 years on, like I said before, when it came to 2020 as compared to 2016, another big wave of Gen Z are now of age. So that could play another big factor. So the voter turnout and the way things go in 2024, it's going to be very interesting to see. Not wrong there.
Numbers that are much bigger than that. For instance, Nikki Haley, give me a break, I know her well. I will never run against our president, she said. I will never, ever. He's a great president. I will not run. This went on for like 2 years. Then one day she's making a speech. I said, oh, that's nice. Ladies and gentlemen, I've decided to run. What's going on? What's wrong? And DeSantis was worse because he was dead until I endorsed him. And then he went up like a rocket ship and he won. And then I helped get through the general election. And he was so far down in the primary that it was measuring.
How about all those
in the
people
actually
that you endorsed
sent people,
in
please measure my bedroom. I want to put a brand new. And then I endorse this guy, and, to me it's a bad seed. When something like that happens, it's a bad seed. So I got him in, and he went up like a rocket ship. One press of a little button, with the button. Now, truth is much better. We all know that. But there was no truth then. Right now, we have truth, which is the best, right? But one press of a button, and all of a sudden, that election was over. He got the nomination. Then we got him past a very tough guy.
Not
said he
that
was
Twitter's
going to be
much
president
better at
someday.
this point anyway.
He turned out to be a crackhead, but these are minor details. But we got him past that guy, him and Stacey Abrams. They were the two hottest male and female politicians in the country. And in his case, he lost. And Ron didn't think he could beat him, and nobody did except me. I did 3 rallies for Ron. We had thousands and thousands. These are massive rallies, thousands and thousands of people. And I said, "You're going to win." "Oh, I don't know. I don't know." And he won. Then 4 years later, they say, "Will you run against the president?" He said, "I have no comment." I said, "No, you don't want no comments." And they know what it means. It means he's going to run, right? Yep. She's like 4 years old. She's saying, "Yeah, that's right." And my people say, "Sir, don't attack him so violently. He's a Republican." I said, "I don't care if he's a Republican or not." And he's taking a big fall. That guy. He's not going to do too well.
He doesn't care
and
about
she's not going to do well either. But we have tremendous, tremendous numbers. And
honestly, I wish that what a lot of political commentators were hoping, or not hoping, but were projecting would happen after 2020, and especially after the insurrection, did happen. Because it would have been very interesting to see what would have happened if the Republicans actually had a backbone and said, "Nope, you're an insurrectionist, you're a traitor, we're not putting you on the ballot." And Trump instead created his own party. He mentioned, he mentioned back in 2020, like after the Republicans had a backbone for about maybe in 2021 they had a backbone for maybe 6 months, a year, and then we got to the midterms and they kowtowed again. But I would have been interested to see if Trump, or if the Republicans actually had a backbone, what Trump would have done. If he would have actually if he would have created the Patriot Party as he claimed he was going to do in 2021, or what.
Hey guys, goes in. Doing this, you're doing this for November because we got to beat this guy, this fool that's destroying our country.
You mean you?
Donald Trump is a dictator.
Yes.
Can you imagine? Donald Trump is a dictator. I'm a dictator. All I want to do is have a great country. I don't want to be ripped off with trade deals. I don't want these countries just ripping us. And boy, we had it stopped. We did USMCA. We did the greatest trade deals ever. But all I want to do is have a great country. Low taxes. We did the best tax deal ever. Bigger than the Reagan tax deal.
Here's the thing. Good trade deals for the U.S. and low taxes. Yes, it may help. It's going to help businesses. It's going to help the 1%. But you know what it's primarily going to do? It's going to help him. That's the whole reason why he's doing this. Especially this time. 2016, I don't know what his real motives were. 2020, again. 2020 was just because he got power hungry and he was like, "Oh, this is fun. I want to do this more." And he realized he could make a lot of money. But this time especially, it is all about him. Hold on. Gotta do it. Give me a second. This should be for those of you who are not familiar. This is this was back in the day with for Carmella on WWE. This needs to be Trump's theme from now on.
I tried to be a good, but I'm not worth. Distract.
just that one part. Me, 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 me. It's all about me. That needs to be Trump's theme from now on.
We have a great country. He says I'm a dictator. But
Well, if it's so insulting, then why? I mean, he's projecting here. He doesn't really actually care. I mean, for those of you who didn't see when he had his interview with Hannity, maybe a week or two ago or something like that, he said he'll only be a dictator on the first day, and he didn't. When Hannity asked him point blank if he's going to be a dictator, he failed to directly say no. He didn't say no. He just he skirted around the question. He doesn't care about, he's probably proud that people are calling that he wants to be a dictator.
they call he's a threat to he doesn't even know what the word means. He's a threat to democracy. Define democracy. That's not a fair question. No, the guy.
Oh, you mean like how? Not that he cares, because anyone that's not him is wrong to him. But you mean like how Nikki Haley said that simply asking about what caused the Civil War wasn't a fair question, or was a tough question. But besides that, you define democracy there, Donald.
He can't find steps to a platform. He makes a speech. He can never find the damn steps. Look, the step. Or you jump out the front if you have to. You can't do that. You have to leave. When you make a speech, his speeches last about 3 minutes. You know why? Because he runs out of fuel. He runs out of fuel. The fuel doesn't last very long. So you notice the speeches, they start off very energetic. He's a threat to democracy. By the end, he's like, I got to get off. This is not the man we should have for our president, okay? Our military has gone woke, our leaders, and I have to say leaders, because look, I defeated ISIS. Everybody said you could.
It's kind of funny that, Trump just doesn't care at all. So it's not really all that surprising that he says these things without actually, without caring. But it's kind of surprising that he said the quiet part out loud when it came to, calling the military out for being woke and whatnot, when DeSantis didn't. But Trump doesn't care, because even if he loses, he'll claim it's rigged and rile up his acolytes to attack. So, he doesn't care whether he wins or loses here. But what does that even mean, Donald? What does the military being woke even mean?
Do it. It would take 5 years. I defeated ISIS, took out al-Baghdadi, the founder of ISIS. I kept saying, why don't they ever get the guy with the fan behind, right? You saw that picture of the fan, like for 15 years, he has a fan. I said, why can't they get him? He's the founder. I got him. We took him out. Took out plenty of others, too. And we had the safest border in our history, by the way. I was telling a group before, I was speaking to a great group of young Republicans, and we surprised them. They had no idea, about 150 young Republicans at a hotel, and they had no idea it was coming. I said, but what we've done and what we have a chance to make this country so great, but this is our final chance. We're not going to have another shot at it, because I even worry about, it's 10 months before the election. I even worry about the 10 months, because he has done such damage to this country. And, what can he do in 10 months? You might end up in World War III. You could end up in World with this character. And then he
Oh, he actually got it right this time. Yes, Donald, it's World War III, not World War II. But again, like I said before, who is in office right now in this scenario? It doesn't really matter. It doesn't really matter.
up and talks like we're the devil, all of us. I mean, basically, it's MAGA, MAGA, MAGA. He doesn't even know what. If I said find MAGA, he would have no idea. It's called make.
I can. It's called white trash rednecks. It's called deplorables. It's called lowest common denominator. There you go. I just defined it for you, Donald.
America great again. That's all it is. It's not.
It's what you've created that is sinister. It is the followers that you attract that is sinister. And if you ever, I mean, not that any of them are actually truly reasonable at this point, but if you find one that, claims, oh, we're not what you say we are, then just simply ask them, okay, are you fighting against the KKK and neo-Nazis and white supremacist groups being aligned with your cause? It's the same argument against the good cop fallacy. If there are really good cops, then said good cops need to fight against the bad ones. If you're not fighting against the bad ones, then you're placating them. Then you're just as bad as as the bad ones are.
It's so sad. These people are more dangerous than the so-called enemy. China, if you're smart, you can handle China. If you're smart, you can handle Russia. I ended the Russian pipeline. He approves it. Then he says, I was soft on Russia. I was the toughest on Russia, and Putin liked me. I got along. It's nice to get along with people that have nuclear weapons. Don't you think it's really nice if you think about it? But I was tough on Russia with the sanctions and everything. But more importantly, he's building the biggest project they've ever done, the pipeline through Europe into Germany. I got angry at Germany. I said, you're giving them all the money. We're protecting you with NATO, and you're paying them billions of dollars a month for energy, and then we have to protect you from the people you're giving the billions of dollars to. Does this make sense? So we had a lot of fun with those countries because they've been ripping us off for a long time. But I'm the only candidate in this race who is up to the task of saving America, and I'm the only candidate that will say with great, I can say it from any standpoint you want, as definitive as you want to make it, we will not have World War III with me as your president. And we're going to do it through strength. We're going to do it through strength. Thank you. We're going to do it through strength.
You can't.
You can do things. You don't even have to go there. You can do things with telephones that are quite effective if you know how to use a telephone properly, if you know how to speak, that are very effective. Sometimes it's better because it's easier to talk over a phone than to tell.
I don't even get what he would even do. What is he gonna threaten these countries? I mean, okay, but I don't know.
Tell some of the things I say to these guys.
What? I get what he wants to do, what he tries to do. And I get that this is how America was. But why would you want to be basically the bully of the world? I mean, he is. It's not really all that surprising that he would want to be one to the world, but
face to face. It's easier for me to say, one of the big meetings. I love these. We go to different corners of your state, and we meet with such great people. And then we're going to do a rally sometime in the I guess in the summer, a big one. We're going to pick a big, beautiful site, maybe the State Fair or something. But we're going to do a big rally. Fun with it. But I tell them that some of the deals we made were so incredible. For instance, Mexico supplied us with 28,000 soldiers. They supplied us with. We said, remain in Mexico. You think that's easy? And this guy gave it up. Remain in Mexico. They were remaining in our country. In other words, they come in, we leave them in. I said, no, I don't want them in our country until they get approved. From mental institutions, they're drug dealers, they're criminals from jails. We have people coming into our country now that we've never allowed people like this into our country, and we don't do anything about it. But Mexico said, no, we're not going to give you soldiers. I said, yes, you are. Yes, you are. No, sir, we will not do that. We will not do it. And I like the president of Mexico a lot. I think he's great. He's a socialist. But it can't get everything, right? Tell those kids, can't get everything. But he and I have a great relationship. But I said, listen, you have to do it. Anyway, he sent his representative, a handsome guy, to see me in Washington, and I was meeting with him. And I had from the State Department a woman who handled Mexico, a very nice woman, but not a good negotiator, frankly. She said, sir, I've been trying to get this for 21 years. They'll never do it. I said, well, I'm going to get it. So I asked Tom Homan. I asked a couple of the top people, really great people in Border Patrol. We have phenomenal people in ICE and Border Patrol. They're not appreciated like they should be. They're incredible. They're incredible. Brad, we have, Brandon Judd is fantastic. I know so many of those guys. They're so fantastic. They want to do their job. It's funny. It'd be a lot easier just to do it and let them come in. They're not doing anything. They're doing paperwork now. They have them sitting, and people are just flowing in by the millions. They have now a caravan. I came up with that name. They won't say that, by the way. The fake news is back there. You got a lot of fake news back there. That's a lot of fake news. But the caravan, we have a caravan, the biggest one we've ever seen. Thousands and thousands of people just pouring right into our country. It is so sick and so sad what's happening in our country.
Again, like I said before about this problem, this issue, I mean, first off, along the same lines as the fentanyl and all of that, the issue isn't nearly as big as people claim it to be. That's the first thing. And then the second thing is that the best way to fix this isn't by, basically making the southern border a war zone. It's to fix those countries that these people are coming from so that they don't have a reason to leave.
So sad. Great representative, I said, we need 28,000 soldiers for no to do that. I said, you are. I'm not. I told them that before. No, we won't do that. But
he's one of, well, I mean, this isn't surprising considering what we know with the Eugene Carroll case and whatnot. But does this really surprise anyone that he just strong arms his way and basically doesn't take no for an answer? Donald, I'm gonna say something to you that someone should have told you a long time ago. And this is something that my mom used to say to me. And you need to learn this right now. No is a complete sentence. No means no. If you get told no, you don't just force your way into someone saying yes. Simple as that. Simple as that.
100%. I said, no.
He's a narcissist and he's a rapist, so, who's really surprised at this?
No, I'm not, sir. I said, you're going to do it. And also, I wanted to remain in Mexico. We want a policy called remain in Mexico, not remain in the United States, and then nothing ever happens. And then another one.
Again, you can say all these things. I mean, he doesn't really care about Mexico. And first off, I highly doubt. I don't know enough about Mexican politics to say one way or the other, but I highly doubt that the Mexican president is a socialist, because their country would be much better and not falling apart. I'm pretty sure he's pretty right-wing.
Catch and release in Mexico. We catch and release criminals, and we have them released into the United States and come back for your court case in 4 years. Only very, very stupid people come back because there is no court case. There's no court case. So it's catch and release in Mexico, and another 7 or 8 items that are impossible to get. So this guy keeps saying, no, we will not do that. We will not do that. And the person for the State Department, she was really good, but she said, sir, they're just not going to do it. I said, 100% they're going to do it. So at the end, I said, here's why you're going to do it. Because I have papers right in front of me, and I'm signing. It was a Friday evening, late, like 4 o'clock, 4:30. He was younger then. Biden was at his home in Delaware or wherever they may be, sleeping on top of the boxes that he shouldn't have taken out, right? See, I had the Presidential Records Act. I was allowed to take them out. He wasn't.
No,
he
no,
was
you
not
weren't.
allowed to take the boxes out, but he sleeps on top. He had his Corvette parked on top of him, right? He thinks the Corvette was such a great car. I wonder who gave him the Corvette, which country gave him the Corvette, right? But I said to him, no, you're going to do
More
it.
bogus
Because on Monday morning at 7 o'clock, I'm sorry, right now, we're going to put a 25% tariff on every single thing that Mexico sends into this country, including all the cars that you stole out. They stole about 32% of our... Did you know that? They stole 32% over the years of our car manufacturing business. And then
It was... Oh, my God. It wasn't that they stole it. It's that corporations are allowed to move, and this is why I call BS on him claiming that the Mexican president is a socialist. They are allowed to move without any consequences. U.S. companies are allowed to move to Mexico, to China, without any consequences, because they can pay slave wages to the people in those countries. And so, yeah, the way you fix that is not by giving them... the tariffs will work, but not because it's funny. The tariffs are actually a smart thing to do, but he was doing it for the wrong reasons.
the unions, the people in the unions are voting for me, but you can't get it's so wedded to the Democrat.
No, if they're stupid, maybe, but most people in unions understand that you're anti-union. You talk a big game, but you're not pro-union.
They have wonderful dinners together. But they stole from the United Auto Workers about 32% of our car making. So they're a massive car manufacturer. They
Again,
I said,
people
fine,
feel it.
Monday morning,
American
7
companies
o'clock,
sent it because they
you have a
could
25% tariff.
they moved the manufacturing to Mexico because of the unions, because they wanted to pay slave wages, and there were no consequences for them doing that.
Single thing that you produce coming into this country, which is massive. That's remember Mexico is going to pay for it. Mexico paid for much more than that. There was no mechanism to get.
Now he's saying that Mexico somehow paid for his wall still. Oh my God, he's delusional.
But there are things which is actually much more money. So it's going to be signed. I'm signing it now. At 7 o'clock, you pay 25% tariff or tax, whatever you want, very similar. And that takes place 7 o'clock on Monday morning. And you can call your president and tell him or not. Sir, may I be dismissed for just a short while? I would like to make that call. He comes back like in about 4 minutes. Sir, we would be proud to give you 28,000 soldiers. It would be our great honor. And we would be proud to have...
So again, he basically strong-armed and coerced the Mexican president to do his bidding. I mean, I get that that's unfortunately a lot of times how politics work, but it's still reprehensible, especially considering what we know about Trump now.
Remain in Mexico. We would be proud. We would love to have. Do you ever see Tijuana? Tijuana, like nothing out of the wall, but the wall became very safe. That's what the Border Patrol wanted. They wanted steel. They wanted rail so you could see through. I wanted to put beautiful concrete planks. Very nice. But they didn't want that because you do, ideally you want to be able to see through. But they also, because they have acids that can melt concrete. You believe this? These guys have everything. And steel is much tougher. So they wanted steel, they wanted concrete inside, 5,000-pound concrete inside, and they wanted rebar. I said, I understand. Different substances you have to go through. You can cut the steel, but then you can't cut the concrete. And we built them the wall. The panel on top is a no-climb panel. Stop climbing. In other words, I didn't like it. I said, I don't like the panel on top visually. They said, so that's an anti-climb permission. That makes it very hard for them to climb over the top. I said, okay, well, we'll put it in. I did everything they wanted, and we built. And wherever we had the wall, the wall goes like this, go like water. So it kept going further, and we ended up building a tremendous amount. But and we're going to put up. This is when I got this to them. I couldn't believe it because I thought it was just political talk. We built over 500 miles of wall, and I ordered 200 more miles because as you build it, it gets longer to go around it. And when they came in after the terrible tragedy of that election, that was a tragedy. That was a tragedy. Look what's happened. So many people are dead now. We're dead. But you look at that tragedy. But so many. What's happened is we had all of this wall sitting there, very expensive, sitting on the ground, ready to be flipped up. It could have been done in a 3-week period, and they say we don't want to do it. I said that's strange. That means they actually were serious that they would have. It's the first time I really believed it. And now you see the result. Millions and millions of people. Last quarter,
Again, what they it. I'm going to make this the difference in this election very simple for you. This election is very simple. It is between compassion, empathy, and compassion and empathy against bigotry and cruelty. That's what this election is all about. Do you respect other people? Do you want people to have a better life? Or are you an asshole? That's what this election boils down to. If Trump, well, even if Trump isn't the Republican nominee, but that's pretty much the difference between Republicans and Democrats at this point.
Probably almost all of your state, 300,000 people over actually a 2-month period. A 2-month period, 300,000 people poured into it. Nobody knows, most people never even heard of the countries from where they came, all over Africa, or Asia. They come from different parts of Europe. They come from the Middle East. A lot of people coming from the Middle East. And a lot of these people are young, strong, and military age. Isn't that shocking? We had 27,000 people. Those people, 27,000 people coming in from China between the ages of 20 and 25. It sounds a little suspicious, doesn't it? What this guy has done to this country, you have no idea. It's just horrible. And then he says that I'm bad for democracy. He's bad for democracy for another reason. He's incompetent. And you're bad for democracy. You're very bad for democracy.
I mean, I won't say that Biden is incompetent, but, neither one of them are the ideal candidate. That's for sure. But, unfortunately, in this winner-take-all, only get to vote for one candidate type of system, for a long time it's been, the lesser of two evils. So that's just the way it works right now.
I have been in this side by side, and it's been a lot of the same people. I recognize the faces so well, taking on the entire corrupt system in Washington like no one has ever done before. This movement that we're all a part of.
You know what's I find funny about this? This was on January 6th. We are just about a half hour, a little under a half hour into his speech. And he has yet to mention the insurrection at all. He's probably going to just completely bypass it. But it's very ironic that even when it comes to, him calling them hostages or whatever BS he says about it, I'm shocked that because it was on that day. Now, granted, he probably doesn't even realize it. He's losing it mentally. I don't know if he necessarily knows that it's Insurrection Day, but if he does, it wouldn't surprise me if he just completely ignores it.
Movement in the history of our, you look at, and every once in a while they go to Iowa, they go to New Hampshire. By the way, I kept you first in the nation. But and they're the first primary. I kept both. I kept them too. The Democrats were going to change them. They did. Look what they did. They gone from there's a great tradition of Iowa, New Hampshire, a beautiful tradition for for many years. They want to change everything. They want to change George Washington, take him off the schools. Let's not use his name. George Washington. No, when they start taking George Washington's name down, we got someday if they keep going like this, they'll be taking George Washington in, but I never believed it. But guess what? Schools, we're taking the name George Washington High School, we get rid of it, put something else up. It's disgraceful. But what we've done is really amazing, and we're going to have. I'm going to say we're going to win for the third time, and I just don't want the results of the second. I don't want the results because the results of the second are so bad. They're so embarrassing. We're left at all over the world. We're left at.
Yeah, because we're laughed at all over the world because of you and your acolytes. You know, people around the world kind of knew already that this country was very divided and had their issues when it came to bigotry and stupidity and demonization of education and all of that. But Obama made it to where the country was at least respected, and it was saying, okay, the U.S. is finally getting with the program, finally getting into the 21st century, finally, looking like a civilized nation. And then Trump comes in and destroys all of that in a matter of 4 years. And now, unfortunately, even over these 4 years with Biden, the genie cannot be put back into the bottle. The genie has been released. The deplorables, the white trash rednecks have been allowed out of their cubby holes, have been allowed to seep out of the woodwork, and they are allowed to spew their hatred and bigotry whenever they want to. And now we are the laughing stock of the world. It's simple as that. And until, even if Trump loses, and whatever happens as a result of that, it's going to take a long time and a large effort from those of us who are intelligent to fix the image and reputation of this country moving forward.
So, it's crazy when I say it because it's not nice. They say, like President.
Well, yeah, because you're speaking glowingly about dictators while talking poorly about our democratic allies like Germany. He talks, he heaps so much praise on the strength and what dictators like Putin, like Xi, like Kim Jong-un, I'm drawing a blank on his name, but the one from Turkey, while simultaneously talking down and calling, the Prime Minister of Germany, the leader of France weak and ineffective and talking down to them as to, because they dare speak ill of him.
Smart, tough. We will start negotiation immediately. I say, let's not, But can you imagine when he sees Biden walking? Hi. And don't forget, I took in $400 billion from China. I gave you $28 billion for your farmers, right? Oh, that guy knows he's a farmer.
So you talk crap about China, yet you took all this money from them? Are you smart enough to understand the issue with that?
He's a farmer. She's involved with farms, huh? No, nobody else. You think Biden would give you 28? He wouldn't even know what the hell. He actually is very anti-farm, if you want to know the truth. But we don't have to worry about him too much here because we beat him badly last time. You know, in the history of elections, nobody.
Yeah, well, I won't say he's anti-farm, but he's anti. He's. How do I put this in the most delicate of ways? He understands that the farmers and rural America is poorly educated and very easily manipulated by the right. So at this point, the Democrats, unfortunately, they should try to fix this problem. But unfortunately, the Republicans or the Democrats rather have basically given up on rural America because they understand that it's a lost cause at this point. Should they do that? No, but what are you really gonna do?
Has ever won Florida, Ohio, and Iowa and lost the election, except me. Okay, it was a rigged election. Nobody has ever done it.
Wasn't.
In fact, if you win Florida and Ohio, it's over. But when you add Iowa, nobody's even come close. I won Florida in a landslide. I won Ohio in a landslide, and I won here in a landslide.
Well,
but
there's a reason for why he won all three of those states but still lost. It's because there has been a shift in terms of what states are what. Florida used to be purple. Now it's squarely red again. I don't know how. Well, I don't even really fully understand how that happened, but it has. Ohio, same thing. Was purple, now squarely red. I mean, Iowa has always been red, so I don't understand how. Iowa, I don't get why they make it seem like they're so important. But for those two flips from being purple to red, you have Georgia that went from purely red to now being purple. They went blue in 2020. You have Virginia that's been blue for a while, but it was a red state. You have North Carolina that used to be a red state and now is purple leaning blue. So for the two states that you lost, or for the two states that the Republicans have gained, they've lost two states and two more populous states. So those states have more electoral votes. So it's simple math, Donald. It's simple math.
Number one, that kind of statistical nightmares that I could give you, like such a big, but together we stood up to the failed establishment. We stood up to the corrupt media. We still are. We have to justify. They say, "Oh, he's a conspiracy theorist," because he mentioned that he just said. He mentioned that those states that nobody. That's a conspiracy because they're so bad country. If they're dead anyway, I mean, nobody's listening to them or reading them. When I came in 2015, I started. Rating, and now they have an approval rating that's lower than Congress. Can you believe that? They're in the low teens. No, they're
because you've been spewing these lies for almost a decade, and you've created a cult around it.
The news is
also, his his election, well, his candidacy and then his election not only destroyed any progress that was made under Obama, but also reversed course immediately back to where we were before that, and then made it 1,000 times worse in terms of the decline towards idiocracy. We are in the throes of idiocracy. If you've, please, if you haven't gone and watched the Mike Judge movie, Idiocracy, creator of Beavis and Butthead, if you have not gone to watch Idiocracy, the first 2 minutes of the movie explains what's going on in this country and explains why we are where we are right now. And even Terry Crews, who plays the president in the future in the Idiocracy, he was basically he even said after when Trump won in 2016, I can't believe that President Camacho is now actually the president, because his character in that President Camacho was supposed to be like this reality TV star, and it was all because he was a personality and whatnot. It had nothing to do with policy, and that's exactly what Trump is.
Because for years nobody exposed them until I came along. Nobody exposed. Who ever talked about fake news, right? Look, they're even shaking their heads. You're right.
See, that's the thing. And it's very much like Hitler. He denigrated the press, and that created this myth about fake news and all of that.
A lot of them actually agree. Get it right. They're editors and the owners of those stupid owners that own that junk. We stood.
You know what's funny about this is he's talking crap about the owners of these newspapers and TV stations and whatnot. But what is the cause of the ownership of these networks becoming consolidated? It's capitalism. It's the system that you want to prop up.
Up to the deep state, the globalists, mongers, the Wall Street special interests, open borders fanatics, the radical left. We achieved things that nobody ever thought would be possible to achieve. We did more in 4 years than any other president by far. more than most did. More than most did in 8 years. When they were in for 8 years. And with your vote in these caucuses, we're going to finish the job and get it done better than anybody ever got it done before. We're going to turn this country around, and it's much tougher. It's much tougher now because we have, thank you very much, we have about 15 million people in our country, because I believe that's the real number. The number will be 15 or 16 by the end of his term. That's more than you have in New York State. That's more than you have in just about almost every state other than 2 or 3. And
Wait.
People that should not be here. People that they didn't want. If you do a poll and you look at jails throughout the world, not just Honduras and Guatemala and, Mexico, different places near us, around us, surrounding us. If you look at polls and study a poll, don't worry about the phone. I don't mind. He's in a panic to get his phone off. Oh, well. I know the feeling happens. The phone goes off and he's going crazy. That means he's a good person, but he still can't find his phone. So but if you look, it's the numbers and the statistics are just so amazing. You look at what's going on and you look at what they've done to damage our country. It's not even believable that they can allow this to happen. When you see the scenes, it's not believable. happen. And you don't have to look at much. And the one good thing is the fake news wasn't covering the invasion at all. And just like they barely covered Afghanistan. You know, Afghanistan came and went in like 2 days. They don't talk about it. You never see it on. It's the most embarrassing moment in the history of our country. Really a horrible, horrible thing took place. And it was gone very quickly.
Here's the thing about Afghanistan. Unfortunately, it was an inevitability. For whatever reason, and I don't, it's too complex of an issue to really say why this happened. But no matter who was in office, because Trump doesn't want to remind people that he was the one that made the deal to pull troops out of Afghanistan. So either way, no matter who was president, the troops would have come out and the Taliban would have taken right over. That's just the way it is. It was Vietnam 2.0. It doesn't matter who was in office. It was going to happen anyway.
From the news, other than, you know, some of the conservative news, they still covered a little bit, but I think it was the worst day. I think it also created a lot of problems, like Russia going in. I think when Putin looked at the incompetence of the job they did, would have never happened with me. We were getting out also, but we were getting out with strength and with dignity. And we were taking our equipment, and we wouldn't have had 13 dead soldiers, and we wouldn't have had 38 people that were obliterated with no arms and no legs. But together we fought hard to rescue the Republican Party from the likes of Mitt Romney. How do we have that guy?
By rescue, you mean destroy? I mean, the Republican Party, in a matter of a decade, went from I know that I would have had issues regardless with living in the South, being a Republican. But knowing Trump basically made the party go from being a top-down, fiscally conservative, focused on fiscal issues party, and acting like they're gonna throw some bones to the white trash base. It went from that to allowing, he galvanized the underbelly and made it to where the underbelly is in control. And now it's at a point where those fiscal conservatives are fleeing. They're saying, I don't want to be involved with this. I don't want to be a part of it. I'm out. And it makes sense. It makes sense that they do that. So, by rescuing it, you really mean destroy it. But let's see what more he has to say about this. It's going to be entertaining.
Well, he's worse than a rhino. I think rhinos are good compared to Mitt Romney. He's the worst. Karl Rove, Paul Ryan. How about Paul Ryan? How bad was he?
He basically says anyone who isn't completely in the cult and completely kowtows to him is a rhino, which is ridiculous.
How he worked at Fox. Now he's on the board of Fox. Wonderful. That's probably what happened to Fox. And there's no chance we're going to let them claw their way back into the power of our party. We don't want them in our party because they hurt our party. And we don't love the job that Ron DeSantis has done or course, when you look at this is the one we get now games, we got to be corrupt the president in the history of our country. And it's a tough language. They indicted because I fought against.
Yes, you tried to incite an insurrection, and you tried to steal a fair election.
And I'm in all these really highly areas with radical left. I got areas where Republicans get 2% of the vote. Washington D.C. I'm going to close up Washington Federal. You can't walk down the street in Washington now. It was a great place when I was there. You can't walk down the street, you get shot. 3 people were shot the other night.
Again, more lies about the evil big city. Unfortunately, I know some people who ironically live in the city, or at least in the suburbs surrounding. Maybe that's why they're too isolated away from it now. They used to live in the city, but now they don't anymore. But they're too isolated now. They believe the right wing media's talking points about how the city is so dangerous. Anyone who has lived, I won't say anyone, because I know people who are like this, who did live in the city and who live close to the city anyway. But anyone who lives in any city, especially the big ones, know and understand, yes, crime has always been an issue in big cities. That's just going to happen with that many people living in a tight area, and until we can get to a utopian society where there is no poverty, unfortunately that's going to be the case. But this myth that you walk down the street and you're gonna get shot within walking 2 blocks in any big city is a load of bull. Yes, if you're being an idiot, or you're doing something you're not supposed to be doing, or you're in an area you're not supposed to be in, yes, you have that risk. But unless you're, like I said, unless you're a complete idiot, or you're, being a stupid tourist looking up at the buildings and making yourself obvious, no one's going to mess with you. There are so many people in the city. Yes, of course, it's going to happen. But it's not this huge scourge where, everyone is at risk in big cities. If that were the case, these cities would not be able to survive. And Trump, I know now he's isolated himself at Mar-a-Lago and moved to Florida and all of this. But he should still at least know people, his organization, not that it's going to last much longer. But the Trump organization is still headquartered in New York. He still has, Trump Tower in New York and all of that. So he should know the reality. And he does, but he's just using it as a talking point. He's a grifter who knows that his base is not from cities, and especially on this campaign trail in Iowa, he knows that he can get away with saying these things.
Walking down the street, there were tourists People don't go there anymore. It's our nation's capital. And what's sad to see, you look at what's happened when you look at what they've allowed people to get away with, how they're destroying the fabric of our country in every way. Washington D.C. we're going to federalize it, take it over, make it safe, make it beautiful, take all the graffiti off those beautiful marble columns. You see these gorgeous marble columns, and then you see a swastika on the marble column.
Yeah, who did that? I could gather a hunch on who did that and when that happened. It was a certain anniversary of a certain event when you were doing this rally, Donald. 99.9% sure that's when those swastikas went up.
That stuff, and we're going to take it over, and we're going to have a capital that's going to be just incredible as it should be. It should be. You can't say there anymore. Country's done. There's no time to waste for your vote. You have to.
People who work in big cities know how to handle themselves.
Get rid of these establishment career politicians that have sold you down the river. We have great people. By the way, we also have great people in Washington. We have great people in our military. I took out ISIS in 4 months. We have great people. I had warrior generals they could beat anyone. The people that took out ISIS were unbelievable. Raisin Cane, you know that story, right? General Raisin Cane. We love Raisin Cane, but I said, what's your name? Cane, sir. Oh, what's your first name? Well, they called me Raisin. I said, wait a minute. Your name is Raisin Cane. I love you, General. That's what I'm looking for. I'm not looking for these stiffs that you see on television. Oh, I'm so ashamed. I walked down to the president. He held the Bible. They attacked that church. That church was on fire the day before. And it got very lucky. We authorized it. They built a fireproof. The area of that church was built along with the White House. And it's amazing. 2 weeks before that, they completed the job of fireproofing the basement of the church. They started a fire in the basement, and it didn't spread because of the fireproofing. But it got very badly damaged. But it didn't spread because she slapped it. It's true, right? And it was sort of luck, I guess. But I went down. I held the Bible high. And Millie said, oh, I shouldn't have walked with the. No, he should have walked with the president. He should have been proud to walk with the president. That was the end of him.
You mean the Bible that you held upside down? You're really proud of that, Donald. Really.
The thing, I love studying the. If you take a look, the wars, I don't know what it is. The Civil War was so fast.
Oh, here we go. Okay, so just prepare for this. I'm going to give you guys a few moments to prepare for this. And depending upon how I feel after this, I may move on to some other things, or I may decide to finish this off. But this is the main thing that I was waiting for him to say. So I'm just going to give you guys a few moments to prepare yourself for this stable genius on what he's about to say. And then I will give you guys a bit of a history lesson.
Fascinating.
Let me give you guys a few moments. Let's prepare for this. I've seen this already, so I know what's to come. But for those of you who have not seen this yet, oh boy, is this a doozy! Get ready for this one. I don't know which ones were. I think the Revolutionary War thing with the airport may be a little worse, just in terms of just being completely delusional. But I think in terms of, making yourself look bigger than you actually are, and on top of that, making yourself seem like you're more, make yourself seem like you're a god. I think this one may be worse. Okay, you guys ready for this? Here we go.
So horrible. It was so horrible, but so fascinating. It was, I don't know, it was just different. I just find it, I'm so attracted to seeing it. So many mistakes were made. See, there was something I think could have been negotiated, to be honest with you. I think you could have negotiated that. All the people died. So many people died. That was the disaster. If you got hit by a bullet in the leg, you were essentially going to die or lose. So you had so many people, no legs, no arms. If you got hit in the arm or the leg, it meant you were up because the infection, gangrene. It was just such a, sort of a horrible time. But I was thinking to myself, because I was reading something, and I said, this is something that could have been negotiated. It was just for all those people to die, and it was a vicious, vicious war. And in many ways, look, they're all this, nothing nice about it. But boy, that was a tough one for our country. But I think it's, Abraham Lincoln. Of course, if he negotiated it, you probably wouldn't even know who Abraham Lincoln was. He would have been president, but he would have been president. He wouldn't have been the Abraham Lincoln. It would have been different, but that would have been okay. It would have been a thing that, and I know it very well. I know the whole process that they went through, and they just couldn't get along, and that would have been something negotiated, and they wouldn't have had that problem. But it was
I don't know if he goes any further.
It was a hell of a time, and you think.
Okay, so I think that's pretty much all he says about it. If he goes any further, I'll go further. I just wanted to let him finish that. Okay, let's get into this. If anyone knows history, they know you know he's wrong already. If you know about American history, you know that he's wrong already. But for those of you who may not remember from middle school or high school or whenever you were taught about this time in history, or, just if you don't remember or you didn't pay attention or what have you. Leading up to the Civil War, for the entire decade prior, following the Mexican-American War, and I mean even before this, there were, you had the Missouri Compromise in 1820, but especially after the Mexican-American War, where the U.S. essentially became the full U.S., at least within the continental U.S., it became that sea, from sea to shining sea, America. There were a bunch of proposals, because back then you had the sectional crisis between the North and South over the expansion of slavery. And the Missouri Compromise had been, a lot of people after the Missouri Compromise thought the issue was settled. They thought, that the bottom line of the Missouri Compromise, if I remember correctly, it's the 48th parallel, was the line to determine, in the future whether a state was a slave state or a free state. But obviously, as the U.S. moved further west, slaveholders and the slave states realized, wait a second, we're not getting as much land in this deal as we would have liked. It worked in the 1820s when they were only worried about getting Missouri in as a slave state. But then they wanted to renegotiate and try to make a new deal. But no matter what deal was made, this was the era of compromises. This was the ultimate era of compromises. And it shows the fallacy of compromising when the two sides are so far up, not just far apart, but one side is completely adamant about one thing happening that the other side is just not willing to do. So the slave states were completely adamant on if they had their way, every state would have a choice, or every state would have the ability to have slaves. There would be no such thing as a free state. And, unfortunately, you also had the Supreme Court stepping in on this with the Dred Scott case that, essentially did make it that way to an extent. But the South just wanted more and more and more, and they could not be satiated no matter what you did. And this is Trump falling into his own mythos of being this ultimate negotiator. That is a load of BS. But if he would not have been able to fix this. No compromise would have been able to fix the divide between the North and South during that time. And to think that there was is completely ignoring history. And to say that it was something easy, especially for Abraham Lincoln. It's one thing during the 1850s, during the sectional crisis, first off, there was no compromise that you could come up with that would satiate both sides anyway, as we saw. But on top of that, especially in 1860 with Abraham Lincoln, the South was just looking for, at that point, they were actually just looking for an excuse to secede. They were just looking for an excuse to break away. And so no matter what Lincoln said to, no matter what Lincoln tried to do, and I feel like the compromise that Trump would say, and I wonder if he's gonna say what he would do. I doubt it, because he knows that if he said what he would do, every historian would be up his ass saying no, that wouldn't work, or it's asinine. But no matter the only, and I don't even really call this a compromise. I mean, granted, this is how Trump works. So it wouldn't really surprise me if this would be his suggestion. The only quote unquote compromise that would work in that sort of situation would be if Lincoln basically just let the Confederacy go. Now nowadays it would probably be better off for the country as a whole. Because the only two states, 4 states. Actually, I take that back. A lot has changed in recent history that has changed this to an extent, and there are bastions of civilization within the former Confederacy. But a lot of issues nowadays would be at least somewhat fixed if the South would have just been allowed to break away, honestly. But that would have been the only quote-unquote compromise that you could make that would have placated the South, is to just kowtow and let them break away. So this concept that somehow it was easy to negotiate out of the Civil War just shows how out of touch with reality and how full of himself Trump really is. So that's your that's another history lesson for the day. That it's the fact that he said this is just absolutely ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous. Okay, let's that was the main thing I wanted to get to on this speech. I may go a little bit longer just to see if he says anything else very stupid, but I may jump into some other things.
Today, I would have absolutely stopped Putin. He would have never gone in. And he
See,
did.
now he jumps into Putin and he's trying to compare, which is absolutely ridiculous. He's trying to compare the Civil War to Putin, which is so wrong on so many different levels. Because for one, there weren't any compromise. I mean, outside of him being allowed to take Crimea, there haven't been any compromises with Putin. And I would say if Trump, especially with him talking about compromises and stuff like that, I feel like, and it's ironic because he's both. he's both in different ways. But when it comes to Putin and when it comes to the whole Russia situation, Trump, if he were in office right now, I feel like he would very much be like Neville Chamberlain, where he would just allow Putin to take over Ukraine and without anything happening. And then who knows what happens next. Especially considering Trump also wanted to destroy NATO. So if Trump got his way and destroyed NATO, then Putin could have easily just taken over all of Eastern European, and there would be no NATO to force the U.S. to do something about it.
There was never even a threat. Tell me, we would talk. There was no way.
Exactly. He wanted it for a long time. So Trump, if he had gotten a second term, he probably would just let him have it.
And I told him, you can't go in. You go in, bad things are going to happen. And he would have never gone in.
But Biden said the same thing. I mean, unless you were going, it's funny. Trump supporters talk about how, Trump is supposedly anti-interventionist and whatnot, and against, against getting us into war and whatnot. But you're essentially saying if Putin would have gone into Ukraine under your administration, then what? You would have escalated it to World War III, which is exactly what you're accusing Biden of doing. Make that make sense.
Oil prices were so low, when been able to afford it. So I got oil spiked up to $100 a barrel. He's making a fortune.
Why the oil went up, and it's not because of who was president.
The incompetence of Afghanistan, and he said, wow, these people are incompetent. I guess I'll go in. Unlike every other candidate in this race with me, and you'll always know that I will put America first, and with God's help, we will get this job done better than ever before. Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, I think I'm sure he says more, but I think at least for today. I think